Welcome back to episode 137 of the Disorganized Wizards Club podcast. My name is Alex. I'm here as always with Adam.
Hello.
And Cam.
What's going on, people?
And we're a group of auto-is players that play just about anything and everything we can qualify for. We talk about decks, tournament stories, just about anything to help you and ourselves get better at Magic.
Yeah, that's right. I've been listening to all the episodes from when I was gone, trying to make sure I'm not missing out. So I'm prepared to do battle over the next couple months. Got a lot of Magic tournaments coming up.
Yeah.
With the squad and friends of the show and whatnot, traveling to do some battling.
Just got to do anything and everything you can do to get better at Magic.
Yeah, exactly. I'm just out here.
Yeah.
Slanging spells.
We've got our M20 top 10 this week, and we're going to just jump right into it because...
Yeah, it's a bit of a different flavor of a top 10, though. The past times we've been doing sort of top 10 powerful cards. That's exactly how we started. And we had things like lands on there. Then we transitioned to still powerful cards, but impactful in Standard. But now I think because Standard is being released on Arena sort of before we get around to these episodes, we're just doing top 10 sweet cards.
Yeah. Well, it's also cards we think that will see play or at least can produce new archetypes and everything. Like, for example, as a disclaimer, like Planar Cleansing is not on our list because it's obviously good. And the last time it was in Standard, it was in the most dominant deck in Standard.
Yeah, plus reprints, not that sweet.
Exactly. Cards like Disfigure, it's like, okay, yeah, it's obviously good. It's what, 4th reprinting? Mm-hmm. So, we don't need to list those things. And cards that are sort of, I think I'm just going to get out of the way now, the sort of big shocker that isn't going to be on our top 10 is the Chandra 6, which is just not on our list because do you really want to listen to a podcast tell you that a pushed card is pushed, right? You don't need us to tell you that.
Yeah, it's
not interesting.
This pushed 6-mana Planeswalker is very powerful. Well, yeah. Right? I mean, if you're listening to that, you're just, okay, yeah, I'm aware. I don't need to tell you that it does everything, that it's really powerful. Our listeners are all pretty damn intelligent from my interactions with them, and they don't need me to tell them that this push card is nuts. So we just decided not to go through and say, oh yeah, this removal spell is good.
And let's be honest, you have to have a pretty high IQ to understand
to the
Disorganized with the Club.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it has to make up for our end because you have to balance it out. So you have to be smart to make up for how dumb we are. Yeah. So we kind of dodge things like that. So a lot of those are on our honorable mentions. So, when going through this, don't be surprised that, there's no temples, The temples are obviously nuts.
Spoilers, dude.
Well, yeah, my bad. There's some people like, hey, temples not even on your top 10. You guys are murdered. Unbelievable. And I'm just trying to, explain why they're not on there. So.
All right. Kicking things off with number 10, Knight of the Ebon Legion. It's a 1-mana 1/2 black vampire knight. You can pay 2 and a black. Knight of the Ebon Legion gets +3/+3 and gains death touch until the end of turn. At the beginning of your end step, if a player lost 4 or more life this turn, put a +1/+1 counter on it.
Squire's made our list. It's official. We're hyped on.
Dude, we were just talking about sweet cards and we just put Squire on.
Yeah.
No, this is sweet.
You guys hype about this card? Squire.
Yeah, so it's bigger than a 1-mana 1/1, and that's awesome.
Yep.
But yeah, like it could enable... In past Standards, we've had mono black aggressive decks or, black heavy aggressive decks. This is exactly what that sort of archetype needs. Something that it can play out early to start getting beats in, but has a relevant mana sink activated ability, and it's an activated ability that fuels itself, so it starts growing.
Mm-hmm. This card is phenomenal. This is a card that maybe shouldn't even be on our list because I think it's actually probably just pushed. Like, I think it's actually insane.
Yeah.
It's a 4/5 death touch. You know what I mean? Essentially, it scales into the late game as this and then just gets progressively bigger. It's something that this is going to be a card that, it has the potential to just run away with games, but also it's pretty fair. You're not going to be too mad about seeing it on turn 1 or 2, but like it's fair early, but still good late. Like I think this card's really strong.
Has some pretty relevant creature types in Vampire Knight. Knight playing really well with some good knights we already have in the format. History Benalia, notable card. Vampires might be playable now with another edition to the format.
Exactly.
I think you're thinking small. Like, it could be a 4/5. It could also be a 7/8. Like, paying 6 is not unreasonable.
Yeah, no, paying 6 not unreasonable at all. I mean, you look back to Warden of the First Tree or
that's
the
what
other,
I was going to bring up.
Or the other Kithkins. What's the other one's name? I can't remember. But
Figure of Destiny.
Figure of Destiny.
Yeah, those are obviously better than this.
Yeah,
because this is just a you have to pay for it. But if it connects, it starts to put in a lot of work, right? I mean, if you get to start putting counters on it, it's really powerful. I think this card's really, really, really strong. I think it even has the options to be played in mid-range decks. As just, turn 3, if you're on the play in a mid-range deck, you just attack for 4, and if they don't block, you don't pay it. You get a 2/3 now for 1.
Mm-hmm.
Now you have a 1 mana 2/3 or whatever. If you do want to pay them whatever, like mana, like it just gives you options.
That's another.
Or you can just make a 3-drop and hit them for 1. Like you know what I mean? You can decide. So it's flexibility.
Yeah, that's an interesting point that you bring up. That like the attack bluff, like if you block, I'll pump it and you're screwed. If you don't block, you can play this alongside spectacle cards, and it's probably just a free attack to enable spectacle if that's what you're trying to do.
Oh yeah, I didn't even think about that. Yeah. Exactly, because it incentivizes people to not block. So yeah, strong card.
Yeah,
big fan.
I like it.
So number 9 is Chandra, Acolyte of Flame. This is the 3-mana Chandra. Costs 1 red. It starts with 4 loyalty. It has a 0 ability to put a loyalty counter on each red planeswalker you control. So sort of a +1. Second 0 is create 2 1/1 red elemental creature tokens. They have haste, and you sack them at the beginning of the next end step. And -2 is you may cast target instant or sorcery card with CMC 3 or less from your graveyard, and then it gets exiled if you put it into your graveyard. Standard flashback text.
So really interesting for a 3-mana planeswalker. They've been printing a lot of the like pretty powerful 3-mana planeswalkers recently, and this one's kind of weird because it has, the set has a lot of elemental, synergies going on, and this one of its zeros synergizes pretty well with some elementals. It's kind of a weird card though because I'm not really sure what type of archetype it should slide into right off the bat.
That's why it's so interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, it has a lot going on. This is a card that theoretically, depending on how the metagame shakes up, could end up in something like mono red, just because if you're always attacking, this card's insane. If it's just a card that you want to smork and you're never on defense, because on defense, this card's terrible.
Yeah, like mono red is kind of where my brain defaults to when looking at this card.
Snapcastering a lightning strike is good.
I think just kind of defaulting to mono red though is doing this card a disservice. I think it has a lot more implications.
I'm just saying it at its baseline, at its worst, it's okay. Just put it in mono red, right? But yeah, I agree. I don't think that's where it goes. I think it ends up in like tribal elemental based or alternatively sort of Judith decks.
Okay.
Or no, Judith decks are non-token. Sorry, never mind. That wouldn't work out.
Cruel Celebrant is anything.
Yeah. You need stuff like that. Like any deck that's sort of based on sacrifice outlets or gaining value from sacrificing or elemental sort of tribal style decks.
Pretty good with Priest of the Forgotten Gods, I'd say this card.
Ooh, that is
nice.
Combo.
That is quite nice.
Tasty.
Wow, yeah.
Yeah.
I also think the first 0 isn't to be ignored. Like there are a lot of other powerful red planeswalkers in the format that like this could fit into maybe Jeskai Super Friends or something. Like it's pressures at opposing planeswalkers in mirrors. Lets your Sarkhan continue to make dragons if that's what you want to do, or maybe you've put this into Grixis because you have a ton of removal spells that you can use sort of flashback, and then ticking up Nicol Bolas towards his ultimate earlier, or etc.
Plays really well with the other 4-mana Chandra from War of the Spark we have to try and ultimate that card pretty quick.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it
even keeps your Saheeli alive longer.
Oh,
if it's being attacked in a Super Friends deck, right? It keeps your Saheeli alive a bit longer by just putting counters on her so she can take a few more hits if it's a combat situation. Like that might come up. Like that's obviously a corner case, but
I just realized I said that it plays well with Sarkhan because he can keep making dragons. He makes all your other planeswalkers red. Then it ticks up all of them.
Yes, it does.
Oh wow, yeah.
Yes, it does.
Wait. That's a combo.
Yeah.
Wait just a goddamn minute.
Yeah, hold on. I take our Teferi's huge.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah,
that is something I didn't really think about.
That's the 1-2 punch. For playing multiple planeswalkers, you can put a counter on each of them. I don't know if it's like that sweet. Well, it's definitely insanely sweet, but I don't know if it's good enough. But if it incidentally happens, it's good enough. But it's not enough on its own to build a deck. But I think it's one of those things that this card can just do a lot. That if it incidentally happens to do all these things in a matchup, then it's nuts.
Yeah. I think the more that I think about it, I think this card's fantastic in Jeskai Super Friends. It allows you to flash back your shocks or even your deafening clarions. It has that interaction with Sarkin and, even just creating 2 elementals in late game to try and get across the last few points of damage is probably fine as well. I like this card more and more.
Yeah, it's quite interesting. There's a lot of ways to go with it. Oh, yeah, you talk about old Golos, Tireless Pilgrim, which is a 5-mana legendary artifact creature. It's a 3/5, and when Golos, Tireless Pilgrim enters the battlefield, you may search your library for a land card, put that card on the battlefield tapped, then shuffle your library. And then you can pay 2 and then Wooburg and exile the top 3 cards of your library. You may play them this turn without paying their mana cost. I think this card's actually nuts. I think this is also like the sweetest card in the set.
There could be anything in the top 3 of your library.
That you pay them without paying your mana cost is insane. That it's not, you can only activate this at sorcery speed or on your turn is nuts. That you can do this whenever you want is insane. That it searches for any land, for a land card is awesome because one of the cards that isn't on our honorable mentions, just because I forgot it should be, is Field of the Dead. So it can go find things to start generating value from 2/2s. It just ramps in general. The body's fine, but the fact that it searches for utility lands is really good. Like Memorial to follow all the memorials. There's so many interesting lands matters cards in the format right now that there's just so many ways you can take this card. You can try and get it as value. You can play it in the Gates deck. I think in the Gates, I know there's some listeners who played Gates pretty seriously throughout the last season and the last year. This is a card that's just comically good in Gates, right? It's just outrageously good in Gates. In fact, I would contend that this card might make Gates close to a top tier deck. I think this card makes Gates seriously threatening because you can start putting a lot more power in your Gates deck and have a lot more consistency in it. So I just think this card's really, really strong. And that's just in the Gates deck. I mean, there's so many other ways you can build
Play this in like Chromatic Black. That deck used to be good, right?
Yeah, Chromatic Black is actually really interesting.
Goes and gets another Cabal Stronghold.
Yeah.
Gives you a bunch of mana. You start activating multiple times.
Yeah.
Well, I guess as many swamps. You need 5 swamps, but.
Yeah, but then you start going crazy, right?
Yeah.
Like this card can just go absolutely nuts.
Yeah. You can play it with like Dread Presence in Chromatic Black. I guarantee what the streamer name, Ali Antrazi's probably already done this.
Yeah, he's already beat us.
He's already figured this out probably.
But like, I'm gonna build this. We'll do it for the deck dump if we get time for a deck dump this summer. It's been pretty busy, so normally there's a deck dump, but we'll see if we can get to it in time. But yeah, no, this card would definitely be in numerous decks for me, and I'm gonna play around with this card a lot. This is the card that I sort of jumped out at me as, I think, for me at least, the most exciting card in the list. I like cards that let you fetch lands in really interesting ways, especially when it's not a basic, and so you can sort of do a lot of interesting things. But yeah, like the Gates deck alone, I think just gets so much from this that it becomes incredibly powerful.
Yeah, not only does it ramp you as the Gate deck, but it's also just a late game mana sink to grind your opponents out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the body's not irrelevant. A 3/5's fine. It's pretty good.
Yeah. Mono red can never attack through a 3/5.
No, exactly. And if you play this on turn 3 or 4, right? I mean, it's nuts. I mean, realistically, in Gates turn 4, but still, I mean, this thing's massive.
I like it.
Yeah.
I like it a lot.
Like it seems good in Gates, but I think I'm liking it better just thinking now in like the chromatic decks because a lot of these utility lands are colorless, so it's hard to operate sort of 5-color decks when you don't have sort of this universal fixer like Chromatic Lantern, because you want to be able to get, as you were saying, like Field of the Dead or Field of Ruin, or going to get Blast Zone is good. Like there's a lot of these utility lands that can't make colors.
Yeah, I mean, you could play a colorless mono black, colorless lands, mono black deck that could maybe even, I don't know, that'd be tough to get Field of the Dead to work in Chromatic Black. I don't know if that would
a lot
work.
of swamps.
Yeah.
But I mean, there are a lot of utility lands in Standard that you could do a lot with. So there's so many ways to build this. There's even sort of other lands matters cards that are going to end up mattering with this, I think. So
I like it. Moving up to number 7, we have Kethis, the Hidden Hand. It's white, black, green, 3 mana, 3/4, legendary creature, Elf Advisor. Legendary spells you cast cost 1 less to cast. Exile 2 legendary cards from your graveyard. Until end of turn, each legendary card in your graveyard gains. You may play this card from your graveyard.
Yeah, card nuts, right? Like it's a 3-mana 3/4, which is already massive.
Mhm.
This is again, mono red's not getting through this.
It's a really cool build around.
And if you're stuck on lands, you can just start playing stuff anyway. Muldrotha is your graveyard, sorta.
Yeah.
I mean, it does a ton for 3 mana. This is a 3-mana creature.
It's got the nice ability that like the 2 lines of text on it cover the spread of the early game and the late game.
Yeah.
Early, it's relevant. Well, it's relevant stats at all points in the game, but early it lets you start curving out faster with its cost reduction. Legendary spells cost 1 less. And then late game, once you have a bunch of lands, you play this, and then you just get to start casting other things from your graveyard. So it draws a bunch of cards. It's perfect with however much mana you have. And it plays really well with legendary sorceries, because obviously it's legendary. A lot of other things in your deck would be legendary. It discounts legendary sorceries.
Maybe we can finally play Urza's Ruinous Blast in Standard.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah. Makes my Lyra's cost 4 mana.
That's nuts.
It's a good curve.
Yeah, turn 3 this, turn 4 Lyra.
Makes my Oath of Kaya's cost 2 mana.
Oh, wow.
And then you can just play your other Oath of Kaya and put another legendary permanent in your graveyard to exile with this card.
That's nuts.
Dude, we're on to something.
Yeah, hold on. Wait a tick. We keep coming up with these like insane. See, this is why we don't just put like powerful busted cards on, because we're just.
Yeah, those ones you like don't think of this stuff. It also sort of fuels itself. Like if you got one hanging around and you draw multiple, you can cast that to put fuel for its second ability in the graveyard.
Yeah.
What other Abzan cards could we play with this that are legendary?
I don't know, like Yawgmoth's Foul Offering we can cast, but and then get back the legendaries that have died.
You can get
so we don't have to use him. But I mean,
recast the sorceries too.
Yeah, there's just planeswalkers we can play off this for sure.
Could play Gideon for 2 mana.
Yeah.
Ooh, wow.
Yeah, Gideon Blackblade for 2 mana. Like
Yeah.
imagine your turn 4 is Gideon Blackblade, Oath of Kaya. Like you play this on 3 and then you Oath of Kaya, kill something, play Gideon Blackblade. The game just end there?
Yeah, maybe.
Like that's it, right? Like that's the game in like a creature matchup. Yeah, there's definitely a ton of other legendary creatures. Tons. There's tons in Standard right now. And planeswalkers. Right? Like this opens up so many possibilities.
Legendary spells. There's like some legendary vehicles floating around too, right?
Parhelion.
The Parhelion. That thing's still really
That thing's-
expensive.
that
That's
thing's
probably
huge.
a bit too big, but
How much does it cost? 9?
8.
8? Only
7 or
costs-
8.
Oh, about 7 or 8 guy.
It has to be 8. I think it's 8.
Yeah,
6
I remember
and
being
2.
even 6 white
Yeah.
white.
Yeah. It only costs 7 now.
That's reasonable.
What a deal.
I don't know. There's some pretty cool things I think we can do with this card.
I think the card's just so sweet because its baseline body is also just massive. Like a 3-mana 3/4 is huge.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. 4 points of toughness. Pretty good. Play with Shalai.
Yeah.
Makes your
Yeah.
Shalai. Like if you miss your 4th land drop, you can just cast your Shalai on 3 anyway.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Cost reduction's always good.
Yeah, just a good mechanic, you
Yeah.
know, just a good, healthy mechanic that never causes any problems for anybody. I'm sure this card will be fine.
What else we got?
I think just-
Tristani.
Tristani. Oh, yeah,
Oh,
Tristani.
man. This into turn 4 Tristani, and
What a
then this
curve.
thing is a 4/5?
Yeah.
Dude. Wait, you just played turn 1 Knight of the Ebon Legion,
Yeah.
turn 2 something.
Amara's legendary.
Oh, yeah.
We're playing Abzan tokens, boys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Turn 1 Knight.
That card always dies.
Turn 1 Knight.
Exile it from my graveyard.
Yeah, exactly. Turn
Yeah.
1 Knight, turn 2 Amara, turn 3 this thing, turn 4 Tristani. Turn 5 Ruinous Blast
Dude,
you.
what a curve.
Yeah, turn 5 Ruinous Blast you.
Jeez.
Exile all your stuff, attack. Then they lose life. We gain life.
That'd
we
be
put
pretty good.
counters on our knights. Goldfished them right there. That's mental magic for you. Next card.
All right, Cam, number 6.
All right, so we got an artifact. This is Icon of Ancestry, 3 mana. As Icon of Ancestry enters the battlefield, choose a creature type. Creatures you control of the chosen type get +1/+1, and then its activated ability costs 3, and you tap this. You look at the top 3 cards of your library. You may reveal a creature card of the chosen type from among them and put it into your hand, and put the rest of the cards on the bottom of your library in a random order. So it's an anthem, tribal anthem, and also tribal card advantage, which presumably if you're playing this in a deck, any card you find is going to have that creature type. So
Time to elf ball some people.
Yeah.
it's actually just a tutor.
Can't wait to put this in my Merfolk
EDH deck?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's what I was thinking when I said it. Then I can like, my tribal EDH deck, yeah. This is going to slot right into my tribal EDH deck, baby. But yeah, no, this card's really good. There's lots of tribal decks that have been close throughout the entire year. Vanquisher's Banner is a little pricey.
Yeah, it's like
Drawing cards is obviously nuts off Vanquishers, but 5 mana is a lot. This is turn 2 off a Llanowar Elf, so this is a game changer.
Yeah, costing 3 mana is really pushing this card into playability. It just does so much. Like your Anthem is also just a mana sink late game to draw more relevant cards.
Yeah, it's exactly the problem that it fixes the problem that tribal decks have, which is that tribal decks want to commit a lot to the board because they're building these creature synergies. But then with things like Kaya's Wrath and now Planar Cleansing in the format, or even just hands that have a lot of removal, they're sometimes stuck with no way to rebuild or getting completely blown out by one of these effects. But yeah you just draw more cards with this.
Yeah.
I mean, you can play it in your Knights deck.
Yeah, you said that there was a bunch of tribes that like have been close. Merfolk is in there, Knights is in there, Vampires is in there, maybe even Dinosaurs. Who knows?
Elves.
There are
Dinos.
some Dino decks for sure floating around right now.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's tons of tribal decks. We'll see if they want this card is the real question, or if they want interaction.
Got it.
That always seems to be the tension that takes place with cards like this. Is you choose interaction over this, unless you can find a way for the Chupacabra, the zombie dog, zombie beast tribal deck, so that you have removal and your tribe.
You can name Elemental with this.
Oh, well, there is a solution.
Yes, you can.
Yeah, you can also name Elemental. Chandra nuts.
Yeah, and the Elementals, I think that we're going to be talking about a couple of them. That might just be the best
we're getting
choice.
there.
One of the ones on our honorable mention actually is tribe with removal too, the Knights. So
Oh yeah.
Yeah. True. All right. Adam, number 5.
oh yeah, Omnath, he's back.
Speaking of
But he's
elementals.
a little different this time. Yeah, Omnath, Locus of the Royal. It's 1 green, blue, red, rug colors. A legendary creature elemental. It's a 3/3. When Omnath, Locus of the Royal, enters the battlefield, it deals damage to any target equal to the number of elementals you control. And whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, put a +1/+1 counter on target elemental you control. If you control 8 or more lands, draw a card.
Dude, this boy is thick.
It's a lot of text.
Yeah, he's a big boy and he's looking to deal some damage. He's looking to bolt some people right to the dome. You play Chandra on 3, you attack for 2. The next turn, you attack with those elementals again. Then post combat, you slam Omnath, you bolt them again.
You know what this card is?
Or Omnath, my bad.
This card is that rapper in the GIF where he like falls backwards and all his friends catch him and they're freaking out because like he doesn't do much alone, but when his boys are with him,
He's about to end this man's whole career.
yeah, he's unbeatable.
This card's sweet. There's a lot of elemental synergies. This card's very, very powerful in the right deck. And if you have multiple elementals, turning into Flame Tongue Kavu or better, the fact that it can kill planeswalkers, kill them, kill
just hit
creatures.
anything.
The fact that it's any target, I think, is what makes this card playable. If it was creature, I don't think this card would actually be playable.
Yeah.
But I think that it gets really into the push zone when it's any target. And we have 3 mana Chandra creating elementals. There's a bunch of other playable elementals in the set. They've been floating around. Also, the new Titan cycle for the M20 is the Elemental Knights, the 5 mana Elemental Knights. There's one in each color.
Yeah.
So you can play those, and they even fit in with this. If you want to go more top end, there's some earlier elementals if you want to go earlier. So this card sort of is the, tribal boss for all of those.
Exactly.
And it's another nice sort of feature about this card is that it has an ETB effect, which is nice. But if you have multiples in your hand, the fact that this has an ability just as it hangs out on the battlefield means that people will be prompted to kill it. So your multiple copies aren't going to be sort of rotting in your hand.
I think this card has a lot of potential. And I think elementals is like very, very good as a whole strategy. There's a lot of really good cards that got printed in M20 and a few cards that have been flying under the radar for a little bit that get a little bit better with the printing of this card. And speaking of elementals, number 4 on our list, Cavalier of Thorns. It's 2 GGG for a 5/6 elemental knight with reach. When Cavalier of Thorns enters the battlefield, reveal the top 5 cards of your library. Put a land card from among them onto the battlefield and the rest in your graveyard. And when Cavalier of Thorns dies, you may exile it. If you do, put another target card from your graveyard on top of your library.
It's just massive.
Dude, this thing is huge.
Like, as a 5 mana 5/6, I think it outsizes or matches most other 5-drops.
Yep.
It even outsizes some more expensive things, but it's just big. Reach is, it's a fine text.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if this thing plays defense very well. People are incentivized not to kill it. You'll just get back whatever the next best card in your graveyard is. I think the real kicker here is that it puts the cards into your graveyard that it reveals, right? It's look at the top 5, pick a land, and then put the rest in the graveyard. The fact that it enables various graveyard synergies and enables itself when it dies is nuts.
It enables a lot of things, like beyond just putting stuff in your graveyard. So decks like Command the Dreadhorde might be interested in something like this, or other Reanimator decks with, I don't know, there's been a lot of talk about Blood for Bones, which is in our honorable mentions, but could be really good with this card. Beyond that, it has its elemental synergies as well. I think this is a great card that Ramp might want, because not only you can get this card onto the field pretty quickly with some mana acceleration, it ramps you, and then also when it dies, it could put one of your big mana payoffs that might have been dealt with earlier in the game back on top of your deck.
Or even so another issue with ramp decks is that you have all these, it takes a lot of cards to generate ramp effects. You often have sort of one payoff that you can cast in your opener. And Thought Erasure and Duress and things like this are probably still going to be popular in this coming format. And so sometimes ramp decks run into the issue where their hand gets ripped apart, they play out their dorks, and then they draw more dorks and lands, and then they die. Where this sort of, if you're able to top deck one of these, or if you have sort of a more threatening payoff and this in your hand, if you get to cast this and it dies, it sort of protects one of those threats. It puts it back where it can't be thought seized. Can't thought seize top the library, so you just leave it there for safekeeping.
Yeah.
Pick it up when you need it. Good to go.
Yeah, that's a really important point. I think there's something else just with, both Golos and Cavalier of Thorns. They're going to be putting Scrylands into play on occasion. So that's nuts as a creature.
Yeah.
You're like, wait, this thing hits an ETB where I also get to scry one?
Yeah.
So I put a land into play and I scry, and you know what I mean? The fact that there was Scrylands is huge. So this is basically a 5-mana 5/6 ETB scry one and put a land into play, and when it dies, get some back. That's actually insane.
Yeah, I think this card I kind of just skimmed over it the first time I read it, and then the more and more I thought about it, the more it just appealed to me. And it actually just enables so many things. And I don't know. I'm excited to play more with this card. I've been playing a little bit with it in a Bant ramp deck on MTG Arena, and it's just always been nuts. Moving up to number 3.
So third we have the new iteration of Sorin. This is the mono black Sorin, costs 2 and a black. He's the Imperious Bloodlord. Starts at 4 loyalty, +1. Target creature you control gains Death Touch and Lifelink until end of turn. And then if it's a vampire, put a +1/+1 counter on it. Second +1, you may sacrifice a vampire. When you do, Sorin deals 3 damage to any target and you gain 3 life. And then a -3, you may put a vampire creature card from your hand onto the battlefield.
Dude, vampires is playable.
Just play this on turn 3 and put my Vampire Sovereign into play. Take 3.
That you can quote unquote ultimate this thing the turn you play it. If you have some big vampire in hand.
Yeah, and it sticks around.
Yeah, and it stays there with 1.
Play it on turn 3, minus put Champion of Dusk into play, draw a bunch of cards.
Yeah, dude. You already played 1 or even 2 copies of Order of the Ebon Legion too. So your Champion of Dusk just draws 3. That's nuts.
And you're taking damage from it, but his first +1 gives it lifelink, so you can just gain all that back.
Yeah, and your board is huge.
Yep. And it just does everything the vampire decks want to do. Or if you want to do a Pride Mate deck or a Life Gain Matters deck.
Dude, this was the missing piece.
There's, normally, I think Liliana was close. The 4-mana one for zombies was close to being a sort of tribal planeswalker I thought had potential, but not quite. This is one of the first planeswalkers of a tribal style that I think is really good.
Yeah.
That I think actually has potential to see play because it just does a lot. Even if, for example, we have to sneak a few non-vampires in the deck, it still gives them lifelink and death touch. It still has a relevant-ish +1. It's not insane, but in a dedicated deck, if we have enough pieces, it's close. So I think this thing's really sweet.
And yeah, there's still for a brief period of time in the format, we're going to have kind of disposable vampires around in the format. Legion's Landing is still in the format. If you want to play some of those token generators, you can to fuel his second +1. Things that you don't mind sacking to bolt to Lightning Helix things.
What's the 4 mana make 3 1/1 vampires?
Call to the Feast.
Yeah, there's that.
That thing's going to be around.
There's Martyr of Dusk, the 2 mana 2/1 that when it dies you make a 1/1.
Yeah, that one's pretty good for sacking.
Yeah. There are ways to take full advantage of this card, and I think it's ooh.
And if you want to get a bit more ridiculous, Arcane Adaptation is still in the format. And then you can put whatever you want into play. I mean, you're laughing, but it's only a 3-card combo.
How does that even work?
Arcane Adaptation enters the battlefield. You name vampire.
Yeah.
All creatures in play and in your hand and in your library are vampires in addition to their other types.
Nuts. That's nuts.
And so then your -3 can put any creature in your hand onto the battlefield.
So I could put what's the 16/16 convoke?
Yeah, I'm trying to remember the name.
Yeah, you could put that thing into play, Great or whatever worm.
Yeah.
Imperious Great Worm.
Giant, huge Ravnica worm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dude.
Old Bigums.
Yeah, dude, that's nuts.
I know people have been
Can put
talking
Talpa in to play.
Yeah.
Yeah, well,
Sakama?
we're just playing this in modern. We're putting Emrakul into play, right? We just hit him with the 3-card
Oh, hell
combo.
yeah.
3-card combos generally trash, but hey, what are you gonna do?
A lot of people have been talking about putting Villas, Broker of Blood, into play because it has Gristlebrand-like text, and that's just what you put into play off these effects.
Or hear me out. We just put Gristlebrand into play.
Yeah, well, we're talking about standard.
Ah, well.
Yeah, I mean, in standard, we're just putting like Vampire Sovereign into play. It was pretty good.
Yeah. Yeah. Beyond the obvious silliness we jumped onto, I think this card like really pushes vampires into being a playable deck.
Or at least consideration for it, you know?
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe this card tricks a lot of people into thinking.
Maybe it's
vampires
tricking
is
us, but I think it's sweet. I think it's a cool card, and I like to see cards like this. Is why I'm excited about the set. I actually feel like M20 is opening up a lot of potential archetypes. I mean, we'll probably all just end up getting crushed by Esper, but hey.
I mean, it's cool to see Planeswalker designs like this that are very specific and like this is for this one specific thing instead of just your generic minus kill a thing plus card advantage, ultimate win the game. So
We glance past the +1/+1 counter as incidental, but are there any vampires that care about that, or any way that you could play a deck with enough vampires but also take advantage of +1/+1 synergies?
probably.
Like vampire proliferating or something?
I don't know.
What
If
an
there is,
unholy
I can't think of
combination.
any right now.
Yeah, that one's probably a harder
Yeah,
thing to pull
because like
off.
what vampires could we put into play? We could put Sanctum Seeker. That's like the Hell
Ooh,
Rider
Alenda
one.
gets counters on her.
Alenda.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's actually good. That's actually really good. The
Yeah.
Dusk Rose or whatever.
Yeah.
There's that
That's really good
vampire.
with counters.
It drains for all the vampires in play when it enters play.
Oh, yeah, that one's good
5
too.
mana one.
Oh, yeah.
What is it? Bishop of the Bloodstained? Is that
Yeah.
its name?
Something like
Yes.
this.
Yeah, Alenda though. That's
That's
good
an interesting
+1/+1
one.
counter.
Yeah, that card probably still not playable, but who knows?
Yeah, who knows? Yeah, you top deck a 4-mana 1/1. Yeah, rats. Yeah, this vampire thing not working out for me. They told me to dress for the job I want.
Yeah, the sun's coming up, you know.
I gotta go.
All right, moving up to number 2, Adam.
Oh yeah, the green leyline of abundance. This is 2 green or free. If it's in your opening hand, you may begin the game with it on the battlefield. Whenever you tap a creature for mana, add an additional green. And then for 8 mana, 6 GG, put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control. So as was pointed out to me in the pre-show, and I just didn't think about it, with Nissa lands, the lands tap for 3 mana.
Yeah. Dude, you can consistently turn 3 Nissa with just 1 mana dork and this card in play.
Yeah. It also pumps your team as a late game mana sink, which is nuts.
It's a payoff for being a ramp deck. It allows you to take advantage of your mana dorks to ramp out huge things way earlier than they should ever come out. And it's free. You can just start the game with it and play if it's in your opener.
Yeah, free stuff.
Yeah, that's a nice feature that this ley line has. Some of the other ley lines are sort of bad draw. Like if you don't have them in your opening hand and they're not free and you draw them later, they kind of either don't do enough or they're too late for their effect to be relevant. But if you're just kind of floundering with mana dorks in play and you draw this, you're really happy because now you just get to start making your team huge.
Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah, that's sweet. What did you say you cast a Krasis for on turn 3?
I cast a Krasis for 7 on turn 3 yesterday.
X is 7, yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, that's pretty good.
Yeah, it was pretty good. It's like turn 1 Llanowar, turn 2 double 2 mana, Paradise Druid, Incubation Druid, turn 3 land, Crisis for 7.
Oh my lord.
My opponent conceded.
Yeah, that's really good.
It was
That's
pretty
really,
good.
really good.
Yeah. You're doing the so absurd things at play. Obviously, you mentioned Nissa. Its combo with Nissa is just absolutely crazy. Casting finales for 10 plus, easiest thing in the goddamn world with this card. Let me tell you.
Casting Finale for 10 is one of the most satisfying things you could do in Standard right now, by the way. For people who haven't got around to casting any of the finales for 10, let me recommend that you try and do so ASAP, because it is so much fun. I think the blue one's the funnest, personally, because the game continues, whereas the other one's the game just ends. I mean, the game theoretically also is over when you do the blue one for 10, but you get to sit around and have this
Your
20 card hand and you don't have to
there might
discard.
be a chance.
Yeah,
so.
it's great. But you cast a white one for 10, the game ends. Everything else is the game ends. But yeah, it's really sweet. And this lets you do that. So I'm on board.
I just beyond just having this card for free in play when you start the game, it's absolutely insane in the early game, and it's just totally fine in the late game with its mana sink. It just does everything. I don't know. This card, I would not have ever really thought this card would be that good when I first read it, and then it's busted. I don't know.
I'm going to say it again. This was something that I said in a group chat a couple days ago. I put clapping emojis between each word. Mana mechanics are a mistake. I think just all of them are inherently incorrect. When they're too good, they just wreck things. Like they make degenerate sort of linear strategies that just go way over the top of the opponent.
Mm-hmm.
And when they're not too good, they still could have been, and that's too risky. Don't tread down those. Because if you make a mana mechanic that's okay, then you're going to make another mana mechanic, and that one's probably not okay. And so it's just stay out of those waters.
This is the slippery slope to free spells.
Even if it's not a slippery slope, it's too risky. Whether it's a slippery slope or a sheer drop off, you don't really want to be pushing your luck.
Yeah.
All right, coming up to number 1 on our list, the unassuming boy.
You would not suspect this as number 1. If you guessed it, then big ups to you.
Wait, question. Is this the first time our number 1 has been not a rare or a mythic?
Probably.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, it has. Risen Reef, 3 mana, 1/1.
Check it out, people.
It's
one generic,
bananas.
green and a blue, elemental, 1/1. Whenever Risen Reef or another elemental enters the battlefield under your control, look at the top card of your library. If it's a land card, you may put it onto the battlefield tapped. If you don't put that card onto the battlefield, put it into your hand. This card is Bustarino, boys.
Dude, better than draws a card.
Dude,
It doesn't reveal it. You just look. It doesn't reveal it. They don't know. It's just 3 mana every time you play a land.
Yeah, why would you reveal it? This thing clearly has the secrets of the ocean.
Yeah, every time. You don't have to reveal the land, sorry. When you play it, you can just put it in your hand. They'll never know. It's your choice.
Oh, yeah, you may
don't reveal.
reveal it.
It's May.
Wow.
Dude, this is just another card in the line of 3 mana green cards that have card advantage tacked onto them that are just absolutely busted. Tireless Tracker, busted. Rogue Refiner, banned in Standard. This card, unbelievable.
Soon to be banned in Standard.
Literally, people are probably onto it now, but people just let it live because it's a 1/1 and does nothing. But then it draws you 5 cards and your opponent's like, oh, wait, shit.
I should have killed that thing.
I need to kill this thing. In multiples, it's unbelievable. When pairing with, I don't know, Chandra Acolyte of Flame, 0, make 2 1/1s, draw 2 cards.
So
Okay.
I was talking about this. This happened to me. My opponent played that. He went turn 1 elf, and I was like, okay. And then he played that on turn 2. I was like, yeah, whatever. And then he played a Chandra, and I was like, oh, yikes, because he's just gonna draw multiple cards. Because you just put them into your hand.
Yeah.
Why do you put them into your hand?
It's so good.
Chandra 3 just becomes a draw 2, or it ramps you.
Dude, I don't know.
It fuels your Omnath. It makes Omnath do more damage, and Omnath then draws a card.
It ramps you so your Omnath triggers more because you get 8 lands into play. Plays super well with the Green Cavalier. This card's so good.
Yeah, there's just a ton of elementals in this set that are not.
Yeah, but what about Goblin Chain Whirler?
You're right. We can't play this card in a Chain World meta.
Oh, what's wrong with you? What are you, nuts?
I've been playing card advantage.
Whirled.
I've been playing card advantage creatures with 1 toughness into Chain Whirler. Since it
My
was
whole
printed.
country.
Yeah,
Like-
exactly. I've been doing it this entire time. Check my track record of my opponents losing and then yelling at me. How can you play this deck in a chain whirler meta? I don't know, dude. You want to sign the slip?
Well, not
Thanks
even
for the 2-0,
See,
dude.
no, that one wasn't even that soft a chain ruler. But remember when, what was it? I was playing Mardu and I left in glint sleeve siphoners and I lent you glint sleeve siphoner Mardu and you beat someone even though they were playing chain
and
rulers.
they were mad.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I can't believe you're still playing glint sleeve siphon. I'm like, yeah, but it lived, and then I just won the game on the spot. Like you had to have chain ruler, you just lose on the spot.
Yeah.
No, it
Which
wasn't
is-
chain ruler. It was Ballista they were mad about.
Oh, that's what it was.
Ballista was in the format,
Yeah,
which is chain ruler is better, but
Oh yeah. But no, yeah, this card Risen Reef is wild. The fact that it pairs so incredibly well with Omnath,
Yeah.
that it pairs with Chandra Acolyte, that the green Elemental Knight, you know, the Cavalier, or
Yeah.
the Cavalier, as Kevin
Well, I'm
would say.
telling you.
Cavalier.
Cavalier.
Write this down. Four Risen Reef, Chandra Acolyte of Flame, probably 4. 6 mana Chandra, 4 Omnath, 4 Cavalier.
They're not
4,
legendary.
4 Nissas. Come on, they make elementals
Why are the
too.
Knights not legendary? By the
4
way?
Llanowar Elves.
But the Nissa elementals don't enter the battlefield.
No, but they're still there when you cast your Omnath.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm telling you, this is a deck.
Yeah, that
We're
is a
doing
deck.
it.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah.
No, I'm serious. Like, you know, it's so funny. This whole top 10, we're like, oh, this might enable this like interesting tribal deck. It's like, you just play elementals, man. Like, you know, the elemental tribal deck is just so powerful.
Yeah.
It's very good.
This card passes the Teferi 3 test. Hell yeah, bounce that card, please.
Yeah, go for it, dude.
Yeah. To keep drawing cards. I don't know. Like,
It triggers itself the first time.
Yeah.
I thought it was just when another.
Oh, come on.
no. When it enters play, you draw a card. And then when you play another elemental, you just keep drawing cards.
Yeah,
man.
and in multiples, it's just
Yeah.
insane. Oh,
I thought
Play a second one,
you had to
Yeah,
draw
yeah.
2 cards.
yeah, it's insane. Or you just ramp twice.
Yeah.
Like,
Whatever
so-
you want.
Nice
Doesn't
explorer
matter.
creatures.
Actually doesn't
You got to
matter.
leave, yeah, with explorer creatures, like, oh, I get to know it's in your
Yeah.
hand, and you have to leave it there.
You
Instead,
know what card's
you
also
don't.
an elemental? Wild Growth Walker. Get in my deck. We'll
Ooh.
play Explore Package 2.
Oh yeah,
We're doing it.
we're running out of room.
we can play Elemental Explorer.
Yeah.
Go for a search. We just draw our entire deck playing green creatures.
Yeah.
Fair and balanced.
We're going to have to put Clear the Mind in, though, because we're going to draw our deck and not
We're gonna deck ourselves. But we don't want to shuffle anything back in. We need our green elemental knights to get stuff back.
Chandra makes elementals. Do any
Well,
of the
we'll
other
just one shot
planeswalkers?
them with the Omnath. Like,
Yeah.
we just play Omnath and one shot them.
Oh, yeah, we have
Yeah.
20 elementals.
Yeah.
I probably don't need 20. Probably need like 10.
This probably the first and only time we'll ever have Uncommon as our number 1 card in the set. Unless they just do something ridiculous like this again. But
Or
this
they
card's busted.
Reprint Rogue Refiner. You know what I mean? The
Yeah.
card like that.
Sure.
Or if they printed something like Whirler Virtuoso and we saw it coming, you know, which
Yeah.
we didn't see coming the first time. I knew how good it was in limited. I just didn't.
Did we not have Whirler Virtuoso on our top 10?
It was in our top 10.
I could have swore it was on our top 10.
It was in our top 10. I think Rogue Refiner might have been as well. I think we had the whole uncommon cycle actually because we thought they were busted.
Yeah.
But I remember like in the limited episode, I talked about how the only card you should take is Whirler Virtuoso overall because the card was
Yeah.
unbeatable and limited.
Yeah.
But yeah, anyway, Risen Reef, sweet card, enables a sweet new archetype, enables cool decks. This card's great. You should order them. They're just uncommons. Hopefully they won't go out too much. If you want to order these, you know,
Wow.
where could I go about doing that? If
You
I
could
was
head-
residing in Canada.
You could head right over to wizardtower.com, your source for Magic singles here in Canada. Pre-orders for M20 are going on right now. They have their M20 pre-release this weekend, running all weekend. It's going to be sweet. Get your hands on these sweet new cards.
They're also a WPN premium store. So if you
Oh,
want to
they
get
are?
your draft on as
Yeah.
well, not if you're not a sealed player, if you don't want to play what some people derisively refer to as the sealed lottery,
Mhm.
you can go into the quote unquote more skill testing format of drafting, which
Yeah.
you know normally you never get to do at a pre-release weekend, but hashtag at the tower, you can go get your draft on at a pre-release. That's actually insane.
I
I think
didn't
that's
even know
really
that was an
sweet
option.
because
Yeah.
we got to go do some stuff Saturday morning, but I might just sneak in there for a draft because I don't know if I'll have time for a sealed, but I'll certainly go draft. I love it. I love me a good draft, and you never get to do it at pre-release. I feel like you just, I'm stoked about that. So check out their website, wizardtower.com, MTG Canada as well. A bunch of articles, strategy, other podcasts, Commander's Brew.
Yeah. Everything you could ever want.
Yeah, free shipping on singles in Canada, $15 or more.
Yeah.
Sure.
All right. Well, that wraps up our top 10. We've got a lot of honorable mentions we wanted to talk a little bit about, though.
Well-
Cards that were pretty sweet, but weren't quite as sweet as the rest of the cards we had on the list.
Still a
but-
bit of sugar in them, though,
Yeah.
Little sugar, little spice. Let's hit them with it. We'll try and keep this one a little quicker. We won't go into massive details. One of the ones I insisted be on here was Hanged Executioner after I got absolutely pounded by Supreme Phantom into this. I was like, wait, that's not fair. You get two flyers for 3 mana. And then he just played Imperial, whatever, the new card that gives all your flyers +1/+1. And I was like, wait.
Oh, the bird.
Now they're 3/3s.
Yeah, Empyrean Eagle.
And then he
or
played
something.
another one, and I was like, wait, Hanged Executioner is just 3 mana 4/4s. That's insane. And I died. And the fact that you can exile it, you can pay 4, exile it, exile target creature. So it's a 3 mana 1/1 that comes with a 1/1 flyer. They both have flying. That's already pretty good. It's the front half of Lingering Souls. And instead of Lingering Souls, the back half is you can pay 3 and a white and exile it and another target creature.
Exiling is actually huge. We were just talking about how like the dies triggers are so strong on Cavaliers.
Mm-hmm.
On the Cavaliers,
Yeah, and this stops it.
Yeah, it makes some
Hey.
really awkward play patterns where like you
they're
don't
riding horses.
you have like a Lyra in your hand, which you hope would stabilize the board, but your opponent just has an onboard, Oblivion Ring just waiting to get it.
Right. Yeah. No, it's
Yeah.
awesome. Hanged Executioner is cool. I think the card's really good. I think the Spirits deck has some potential there.
Man,
so.
it is just the wild west of Magic. People riding around on horses getting hung for crimes.
Yeah, dude. So it's messy out there.
We've also got Dread Presence, 3 and a black for a 3/3 Nightmare. Whenever a swamp enters the battlefield under your control, choose 1. You draw a card and lose 1 life. Or Dread Presence deals 2 damage to any target. You gain 2 life.
So this is a card I'm having a hard time assessing. I think this card either sees just 0 play because it dies right away, or it lines up in its Axu's Berserk and maybe
Yeah.
one of the best cards in the format. Because again, our top 10 list was sort of cards we're excited that could breed new archetypes. But this is a card that could theoretically be a standard all-star, like a
Yeah.
5 out of 5, just literally defining standard.
People have been trying it with Scape Shift already.
Yeah, it's just, I mean, even as a value play, in Chromatic Black, like that's a really powerful bunch of text box on this card. The
Yeah.
problem is that it's baseline, it's a 4 mana 3/3 when you top deck it, right? And Grey Ogre's not that exciting. But, when it does live, it can do some really exciting stuff.
Yeah, I
so.
think it depends on how playable a very swamp heavy deck is. Because as you were saying, like top decking 4 mana 3/3 is not amazing. But if you have a reasonable chance of guaranteeing that you'll draw a swamp if you untap with it or in the next couple turns, then it's nuts. It kind of sidesteps that, because other cards that we've been super excited about have this like good early, good late. If
Yeah.
you can make this probably good late, then it's pretty good because it's a card that requires other cards to function,
Mhm.
which is always going to be its weakness.
Yeah. We also got Mu Yenling, Sky Dancer, 3 mana Planeswalker,
This is a-
1 blue, 2 loyalty, +2 until your next turn. Up to 1 target creature gets -2, -0 and loses flying. -3, create a 4/4 blue elemental bird. Creature token with flying makes an elemental bird.
Ooh.
That's actually busted. Wait, it's insane with our Risen Reef. Oh my
And
God.
-8, you get an emblem with islands you control have tap, draw a card.
This card's obviously good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
probably.
I think it's probably pretty obviously good.
I think it's great. Plus is up to 4 loyalty, protects itself on its plus. You don't even really ever have to make a elemental. Elemental bird, probably not that good in a Teferi metagame anyway.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's just not sure if
But-
it does enough. This is just a meta-dependent card. It's obviously good. It's just going to depend on whether you want to buy time by shrinking a creature.
Yeah. And I mean, you emblem this thing, you're winning the game.
Yep.
Like,
My
that's
only-
just happening.
My only concern when I read this card is that, it does read like it could be very good. I'm just concerned, it's clearly very good if you cast it on turn 3 because its +2 will be enough to keep it alive.
Mhm.
But I feel like its power drops off a lot if you cast it on turn 4 or 5
Yeah, that's true.
because then it probably can't keep itself alive and doesn't go to high enough loyalty to not die. And so then you're kind of in this period of the game where you can't cast it until you have 6 or 7 mana so that you can cast it and protect it. So it's one of these cards that I feel like it might not see play because drawing it a turn late completely takes away all its power.
Yeah. I think that's the case for a lot of the stuff on our honorable mentions that they're sort of,
yeah,
they
that's
don't fill the same slot as the good early, good late that you mentioned that our top 10 do.
Yeah.
That are sweet cards, but they're also good early, good late. Like the next one on our honorable mentions is actually same thing, I think, that it's, good early, bad late, which was the Blood for Bones was up on the screen, right? that if you top deck this, just obviously horrendous. You know, if you're behind.
Yeah, if you don't have a creature,
Does
you want
literally
to set.
nothing. Like it does nothing on its own. So, but really, really powerful potentially, right? Return a creature. So for people who don't know, it's a black and 3 sorcery as an additional cost. Sack a creature, return a creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield, then return another creature card from your graveyard to your hand. So has a lot of potential. It's just good value. I mean, in limited, this card is.
Oh, it's insane.
This is just the best thing ever for limited, but in standard, I've heard a lot of people talk about it, but I think it has the same problem that the Planeswalker does.
Its functionality can be interrupted on certain naturally occurring game states.
Cam, you liked this one, right?
Yeah, I liked it. I think it has similar issues as these previous cards we've been talking about, but this one is Elvish Reclaimer. Costs a single green mana for an elf warrior. It's a 1/2. Elvish Reclaimer gets +2/+2 as long as there are 3 or more land cards in your graveyard. And then you can pay 2 and tap it and sacrifice a land. Search your library for a land card, put it onto the battlefield tapped, then shuffle your library. So it has a similar role as we've been talking about throughout the episode, that there's a lot of utility lands in standard that are good to go and get. It can do that. It's not ramp, and it costs a fair amount of mana early in the game to do that, but it has this nice sort of functionality. And then a 1 mana 3/4 is obviously a very, very good body. What was the last one? That elephant that made energy and you had to pay energy for?
Yeah, Greenbelt
Rampager. That thing was pretty good.
Yeah.
But yeah, so like it has a 1 mana 1/2 is fine. A 1 mana 3/4 is very good. But again, it doesn't enable itself. And so that there's a deck building cost to somehow getting 3 or more lands in your graveyard so that your 1-drop sort of levels up.
Well, it
enables itself
It
just
enables
horribly.
itself very, very
It's
slowly.
horribly. Yeah.
Yeah.
You can't really justify playing it, I think. Although, maybe even in the Elementals deck. I don't know. You could go get some. I don't know. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, but it's definitely interesting because there's a lot of lands matters dead, like Field of the Dead, right? Which is it's the colorless land comes into play taps for colorless. And whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, if you control 7 different lands, different named lands, you make a 2/2 zombie. So you need a lot of variation in your lands in your deck, but Elvish Rejuvenator lets you, and there's ways to do escape shift, play with stuff like Lotus Field, which is very interesting. In the monochromatic black deck, or even a mono green deck that does it, or a green black deck, you can play Cryptic Caves, Evolving Wells. There's a lot of ways to enable this kind of thing.
Yep.
So super interesting, really unique, but suffers from some weakness issues. I don't actually think this card is much on the weakness side, though. I think Night Pack Ambusher is actually a close to top 10 card. I think this card's really powerful. So it's two colorless and green, so 4 mana for a 4/4 flash. It's a wolf. Other wolves and werewolves you control get +1/+1. At the beginning of your end step, if you didn't cast a spell this turn, create a 2/2 green wolf creature token. So this wolf's essentially a 3/3 if your Night Pack Ambusher lives. The fact that it has flash sort of enables it. If you have a second copy, if you have a follow-up, you're going to get the 2/2 unless they kill it. You just flash it in at the end of their turn. They're not going to see it coming. So a lot of times you could end up with just 7 power for doing nothing, which is nuts. I think more importantly, though, for me, it is the same spot on the mana curve as Frilled Mystic, which you brought up. So it puts people in a pinch of, well, I'll counter whatever you have, but if you make an attack first, I'll just eat your guy with this 4 mana 4/4 flash. Like, that's huge stats on a flash creature.
Yeah, it's
right?
big. It's big.
That's massive for a flash creature. Flash creatures are usually not 4/4s. That thing's huge. More importantly, I think it pairs well with Vivian, Champion of the Wilds.
Yep.
Which gives all your creatures flash. So we basically can always ensure that we're making a 2/2 green wolf off this. And so then it starts pumping them. I'm not sure there's other wolves or werewolves in standard we want to play, but this thing actually doesn't care about that because you can play this on its own.
Just its own, as it's an engine in its own card, it's totally fine.
Yeah, that's why I said I think this card was close to making our top 10. I think this card's actually really, really, really strong.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It could just run away with games.
Yeah, if you play one on turn 3 off a Llanowar Elf, and then you don't do anything and pass, and you have 7 power and you attack them, and they, I don't know, the next turn they wrath you, let's say, and you just flash in another one end of turn after the wrath, then attack them again, okay, I have 7 power again.
Yeah.
What do? They have to have a second wrath. Because you just make another wolf again the next turn if they don't kill it. Like, it just gets way out of hand.
Yeah.
It's an army where you don't have to do anything. It incentivizes you. In a green-blue deck, you can just sit behind counter magic and protect it forever.
It's very good with counter magic. It's very good with just anything that sort of flash creatures or mana sinks that are sort of in your lands that you can use. I don't know if there's going to be a green-white deck, but if you just have like a Flip Legion's Landing, cool wolf.
Just like the cat. That's our cat's name.
Oh yeah. He is a pretty cool cat.
Yeah, he's a cool cat.
Actually, yeah. So I was traveling recently, and despite my better efforts, there was still a lot of cat hair like in the clothes that I packed in my suitcase. And the people I was traveling with commented like, "Well, geez, like you didn't do laundry. Like, why is there all this cat hair on your clothes?" And I was like, "No, you don't understand. I did laundry like twice, and I went over this with a lint roller, and like I can't get rid of all this cat hair." And then they looked at me and they're like, "Is it a long-haired cat?" Yes, it's a long-haired cat. Have you seen these things?
He's kind of beyond a long-haired cat, though, too.
Oh, it's level 2.
Yeah. Did I tell you Pete and I weighed him?
Oh, I know that he likes sitting on the scale,
Yeah.
but I never got to see how much he actually weighs.
Like 20 pounds, man. Huge.
Oh, dude, that guy's massive.
Dude,
Yeah,
most
it is.
cats
You've
are
seen
like
him. He's a
8 to
huge
10
cat. Yeah.
pounds, man. He's
Yeah, he's-
actually enormous. But he's not fat.
No.
He's just
He's
huge.
just big. Like his paws are big, his head's big.
Yeah. He's just a gigantic cat. Like he takes up entire couch cushions when he lies on them, right? Like his paws are massive. He's a big boy.
And despite all of that, I don't think you could take any other cat in a fight.
No,
he'd lose them all.
Useless. He's such a like sweetheart. When he play fights, he doesn't even use his claws. Speaking of big fluffy white creatures,
Another honorable mention: Safara Sky's Blade costs 4 white. So it's 7 mana for a 7/7 flying lifelink. Other creatures you control with flying have indestructible, but then its first line of text is that you may pay a single white mana and tap 4 untapped creatures you control with flying rather than pay the spell's mana cost.
Yeah, pseudo convoke.
Yeah, pseudo
This thing's
convoke.
huge.
And so like, it's obviously comparable to Venerated Loxodon in that if you have 4 other creatures, it costs 1. It kind of pumps those creatures in a way because they will have indestructible. And so, if you wanted to build mono white slightly differently so that your 1-drops have flying, if you wanted to play, say, Rustwing Falcon or maybe even blue-white flyers,
Healer's Hawk, dude.
Healer Hawk is in the format. It's just another thing. I think this is good because it's another mana mechanic. And those are mistakes. And so
that it also protects you from wrath when you dump all your hand onto a board is really powerful.
yeah, this dies and nothing else.
Mm-hmm.
So it's pretty good. Yeah. What else we got on here?
Marauding Raptor.
Oh yeah.
2 mana, 2/3, 1 in a red, dinosaur. Creature spells you cost 1 less to cast. Whenever another creature enters the battlefield under your control, Marauding Raptor deals 2 damage to it. If a dinosaur is dealt damage this way, Marauding Raptor gets +2/+0 until end of turn.
Yeah, I put this on here because the 2 mana 2/3 is fine stats, and then its first line is a mana mechanic.
Yeah, cost reduction always ends up being pretty good. Obviously, there's a pretty big deck building cost where all your creatures have to have 3 or more
Yeah,
toughness.
but they're dinos. They're huge anyway.
Yeah, but
And I think this is the only card in Standard that can draw games.
with Polyraptor.
Yeah, you play Polyraptor, and it never stops triggering in the game's a draw. So, if you're behind, you can just sandbag those 2 in your hand.
Yeah. Then just get them.
Oh, yeah. Obviously, really good with Ripjaw Raptor.
Insane.
It plays very well with all the enraged dinos that have
Yeah.
more than 2 toughness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, this card's pretty good. I think this card's close. If there's a deck for it, it's going to be an all-star in it because it plays defense early. It's, like Cam said, a 2 mana 2/3 is nuts. The fact that your curve can be this into Ripjaw Raptor is wild because of the cost reduction. This card's really powerful.
And that curve's like, it's not even a 2 mana 2/3. If that's your curve, you're attacking with a 4/3.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
That is a lot on turn 2.
It's a big dino.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Man, rip that Rampaging Frost on his band. Those 2 would have been best friends.
Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's 2 equipment in this set that I also wanted to talk about that I think they're close, and I don't know if they're good enough, but I think they're close, which is Mask of Immolation and then the sword, which I can't remember the name of.
I'll find it.
And they're the 2 mana equipment that when they enter the battlefield, you create a 1/1. Importantly, the red one is an elemental. You create a 1/1 elemental token and attach Mask of Immolation to it, which you can then sacrifice that creature and it deals 1 damage to any target, and it costs 2 to equip. And then the white one is Ancestral Blade, which is 2 mana, make a 1/1 soldier, and then attach Ancestral Blade to it. Equip creature gets +1/+1. So I think that these equipment just accruing value over time is already pretty good. Like I think something like having 4 Ancestral Blade in your deck and then drawing them a bunch of copies late game is actually really good because you play one and then attach the other 3 and you have a 5/5 for 5, which is fine as a late game draw. That also enabled some early aggressive attacks. Like, I know it's only a 2-mana 2/2, but I think the fact that they scale is interesting. But Mask of Immolation making anything a sack outlet, I think, is also really interesting. I'm not really sure how to build them. I just think both these cards are pretty interesting for equipment decisions, and that always leads to possible cool deck building and deck building archetypes. I think there's lots of ways to do it, different sack outlets, and different ways to sort of accrue value from them, but they're quite interesting.
Yeah, like I mentioned this in the pre-show when talking about Mask of Immolation, that Mortar Pod was a card we had before, and it was played in Standard a decent amount. And this card is pretty much the exact same thing. And I don't know, I think people have kind of overlooked it, and it has a lot more potential than a lot of people originally think.
Yeah, it might just be underpowered for now, but I think it and Ancestral Blade both are close to being quite powerful.
Yeah, definitely really good and limited, I'd say.
Oh, if you can get every single copy of Ancestral Blade in limited, you're laughing. That's insane in limited.
Yeah.
That's the 1/1 punch.
Yeah, exactly.
No.
Because I think Short Sword was insane in limited.
It was quite good.
And this is just better.
Yeah.
Yeah, this next card we kept off our list, but I think is one of the more potentially busted cards in the set and brought back. It's white, instant. Choose up to 2 targeted permanent cards in your graveyard that were put there from the battlefield this turn. Return them to the battlefield tapped. So, like, obviously in Eternal formats, really good with fetch lands.
Yeah, this is unhealthy text. Cam talking about mana reduction. This card is not healthy.
Yeah, I don't know. I read this and there's something busted we can do with it. I don't know what it is, but it's there. There's definitely something there.
You know what we could do? We could make a white mana with our Mox Opal. We could sack that. We could bring it back with our Scrap Trawler, make another white mana, sack some other things to our Cart Clan Ironworks, bring those back with Brought Back.
Wait a minute. Slow down. Yeah, I don't know. There has to be some kind of combo with this card in Eternal formats. I even think in modern blue-white control would want to play like 2 copies of this card. It's just like, in some instances, you can just bring a Planeswalker back into play, or just even ramping on, turn 2 as a blue-white control deck, I think is unbelievably good. Just gain such a huge mana advantage on your opponent as a control deck that early in the game.
Yeah, that is actually quite interesting. You just wait and double fetch and then bring them both back.
Yeah,
on turn 2 and then just don't have 2 fetches again. You just play a Jace the next turn. All right. You're up.
Jays played Teferi. Hell.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
but I think it's mostly just with like combo, right? Like this is a combo card that is going to be abused with certain creatures.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's probably with what are the cards that are like attack and then you sack them or whatever instead of they live, there's a bunch of cards that are like they get 1 attack step and then you sack them.
Oh, like Skizix.
Oh.
Yeah, but like cards that have that effect in Eternal formats, like I don't know, or you just get your Black Lotus back in Vintage, whatever.
Yeah.
That's pretty good.
If we want to play this in Standard, we can bring back the lands we sacrificed with Lotus Field after we play Lotus Field.
Or you scape shift.
Yeah.
And you go get Field of the Dead, and then you brought back, and you like
bring back all the lands.
Get back, well, not all, but like,
it's
only 2, right? But you get back utility ones or something else, or or like there's even the potential to abuse the Cavaliers, like you sacrifice them somehow, like the Knights, and then get their death trigger, and then bring them back into play again.
You could sacrifice them with Mask of Immolation.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, we got it.
Yeah, there we go.
But then also we didn't have the other 5-mana Cavalier Knights, the Elemental Knights on our list, but obviously we all think that they're nuts. I think the white and black one are both absurdly good. I think the white one is bonkers and could have easily been on our top 10.
Yeah.
But I think it's just so clearly good. The fact that when it dies, I get to return my History of Benalia or my... what was the 5-mana one?
Eldest Reborn.
Yeah, I'll just get back my Eldest Reborn so I can just replay my Cavalier of Dawn.
Yeah, that it loops with Eldest Reborn is pretty good. People are going to be trying to make Cavalier of Gales into actual Brainstorm because it lets you, it's ETB is Brainstorm and then its dies is Shuffle.
That's nuts.
So
yeah, can't wait to play my 5-mana Brainstorms in Standard.
5 mana plus sack outlet.
Me up.
Yeah, it's nuts, man.
Yeah.
And you scry 2 at the end. That's better than Brainstorm Fetch.
Yeah.
You get what you pay for.
Yeah. There's surprisingly a lot of sweet cards in this core set.
Blight Beetle's interesting too, just as like an incidental hate card for like a lot of
There's lots of
strategies.
really good hate cards too. For a core set, man, there's a lot of just going on here.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty sweet.
Yeah.
And then the last card that we obviously didn't talk about on our honorable mentions is Chandra the Awakened Inferno, which we mentioned at the beginning of the show. I don't know that we need to. We talked about this on air.
This card does.
We talked about it in a previous episode too.
Yeah, I wasn't even here for it, and I was actually flying back, and I downloaded the episode so I could listen to it on the flight. And I was listening to it, and I was like, "There's no way they read that right." And then I just hear because I think it was Hemsley was on the episode, and I just hear all three of you like, "Yeah, the card busted," like, just yelling about it. And I'm sitting there on the plane like, "Dude, they are right. That card is nuts." And I was like, "There's no way they're reading this like." And I couldn't look it up because on the flight, I'm like, "God, like, WestJet, where's your Wi-Fi?"
Yeah. Like this card is just gonna flame a lot of people.
Yeah. Can't wait.
That's about that sums it up.
Yeah. All right. Thank you all for joining the club this week. Make sure, as always, you check out wizardtower.com for all your Magic Single needs. Get your pre-orders for Core Set 2020 coming to you soon. Pre-release this weekend here if you're here in Ottawa. And if you want to support the show, check us out on patreon.com/DWC Podcast. You can find us on Twitter at DWC Podcast 1 or the Disorganized Wizards Club Podcast on Facebook. Thank you all for listening, and we'll catch you next week.
See ya.